Ready to get started? Hi, Carla.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here today. We're very excited to get started and learn more about you and your experience. I know we're just meeting now for the first time, but trust me when I say I've read a lot about you, heard a lot of interviews and blogs, and we're excited to kind of get going here. So just a quick introduction about Carla. Carla, CMO at Foxtrot, contemporary evolution of corner store and cafe. As CMO, she oversees merchandising and marketing, leading efforts to redefine what a healthy and fresh convenience store really is. Prior to Foxtrot, she was vice president of marketing at Equinox, vice president of global brand strategy at Kate Spade, head of social media and digital partnerships for Amazon Fashion, and senior director of social media at Saks Fifth Avenue. So her resume is pretty robust, to say the least. She has an undergraduate degree in English literature from Purdue, an MA in art history from the University of Chicago, and a master's in art history from the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. So Carla, jumping right in, how does one go from getting her master's in art history to one day redefining the way consumers think about a convenience store?
Oh, that's such a great question, because I think it's not as circuitous as you might actually think. I think the best marketers are ultimately highly curious about culture and really connected to how the world is visually represented and how it's communicated. And so in many ways, that transition from being an art historian to going into being a leader in business was much more natural than you might at first suspect. I think in the roles that I'm in today, we often describe ourselves as being the next generation brand, a brand that is anticipating customer needs and wants. And in doing that, you really have to be highly curious about what trends are emerging and how your customer is connecting with you. And I think that that ability to connect both possibility and potential from a business standpoint is rooted both in my art history background as well as my business degree. So
love it. No, that's great. And you talked about brand, and at MBCU, that's all we kind of talk about, building brands and connecting brands. We represent a one platform mentality, which is anything from Bravo to E to NBC Sports, anything that the light touches underneath the Comcast umbrella, we're able to take to our brands and build their story. So storytelling is really the heart of everything we do here at NBC Universal. And I'd love to know, what does storytelling mean to you, and what is your personal brand story?
Oh, I just love that. I think to be a brand today, I always say you have to not only have a narrative arc, but you've got to be able to peel that into different chapters, right? Because the reality is, just as you pointed out, customers are engaging with you 24/7, and they're not doing it simply through one modality. And that's very true in the environment that we exist in at Foxtrot, where customers might come in and get to know us through our retail stores, and then bop onto the website, place their first delivery order, and then have such a great experience that they're then connecting with us regularly through our app. All of those different touch points exist in what we like to say is the Foxtrot ecosystem, but they're not all the same things all the same time. And that's really responding to the fact that we know our customers want consistency, but they also want diversion and discovery at the same time. All of it linked through that master narrative, as you were saying, but having some creativity in play to unfold the story over time.
Love it. And talk about a little bit more about how innovation plays a role here. You obviously, we have retail stores, you have e-commerce. Can you talk a little bit about how technology changes your day in and day out, and what the future holds for Foxtrot in the next 5 years, 10 years, and as we look to the metaverse in the future?
Yeah, it's such a great question, because you're right. You could come into our stores and think, oh, this is a new experience of a corner store or a new type of a convenience store. But at our core, we really are a technology company. And that's reflected even in the way that our company team is structured. We have a huge amount of engineering talent and product development talent that informs how our app and website and loyalty program come to life. And I think the reality is that innovation is our primary way of really thinking through how we want to connect and engage with our customer. At a retail basis, our proposition is quite easy to explain, right? We're the place that you come in the morning to have a great cup of coffee and a taco. We'll meet you at lunch for a salad that's ready to go. We'll catch you in the afternoon for a snack, and then we're ready to serve you with a great bottle of wine and a pint of ice cream in the evening. But the connective tissue that makes that all possible really is our app and our platform. And that both gives the seamlessness and the easy efficiency to our customers that we know they rely on. But it's also our way of telling stories, to our earlier point, and then getting closer to our customers. I think, there used to be this notion that, oh, that's tech, that's UX, I don't touch it. But the reality, I think, if you talk to many marketers that are sitting in the C-suite, UX is their richest way to actually get consumer insights and get as close as possible to their customer.
Yeah, no, that's great. And NBCU has always been traditionally a media company, but what we've learned over the past several years is that we have to be more than that. We are a media tech company now. And not only are we providing the greatest content and talent, at the end of the day, we need to be at the forefront of technology to give the content that viewers are kind of craving. Exactly what you're saying is technology how that content and how their favorite brands are going to be delivered directly to those customers. So you talked about it's all about discovery at Foxtrot.
Yeah.
Go into the retail store, you go on the site. It's all about discovery. Tell us the biggest thing you have discovered about your customers that may have surprised you at the time, or something that you've learned along the way.
I think just their appetite and curiosity for newness and their willingness to explore and experiment. About 10 to 15% of our assortment changes month to month, and that's intentional because we're always getting reads on what new brands are that are coming to market. And our customers' willingness to kind of go into net new avenues that even 18 months ago would have seemed really strange. An example would be plant-based proteins appearing in snack food, or gummies that have adaptogens that are actually good for you. That desire to kind of continually be on the cusp of discovery is really at the core of what our customer is craving. And I always say to my team, never underestimate our customers' desire to really engage and be informed. And I think that's another big piece of consideration as we think about our brand and also our merchandising assortment is our customer is consuming information through multiple platforms, not just from us. And so we've got to be in the same media environment that they're in as we're thinking about how our assortments and our products come to life.
I love that. And in terms of retail, it's funny, we've been warned about the pending decline of retail for years now. But yet Foxtrot has opened 16 locations, correct me if I'm wrong, 16 locations across Chicago, Dallas, DC, and you're now looking to open 50 new stores throughout the country over the next few years, including Austin, Boston, New York, Nashville, Miami. Where do you see retail heading? Talk about how Foxtrot's using innovation to expand both on the retail and e-commerce front.
Yeah, I think listen, I've always been bullish in retail. I grew up in stores. My first job after business school was in Target, and I have an obsession with the type of almost theatrical experience that can happen in really great retail brand environments. And I think we're in a world where, because you've had so much decline maybe in traditional retail, whether it be kind of mall-based, that anchor store environment, conversely, I think you've got this real hungry appetite on behalf of the customer for engaging environments that feel hyper-localized, that are contextualized in the neighborhoods in which they want to spend time. And that's different from this like go-to retail, right? It's retail that appears more contextually in the environments and in the lives of our customers. And that's really been our strategy. We are, as you can tell by our growth, big believers in the power of a four-wall experience, because when done well, it's like being in a three-dimensional billboard for the brand. And we see that as really our primary first point of discovery on behalf of our customers, where they get to, as I like to say, fall in love with us in our most hospitable format. And then the app just gives them a way to extend that relationship outside of the confines of four walls. But, I was just in Austin recently, in New York as well. And I think what you're seeing are these clusters of really engaging retail that is connected to a certain type of customer mindset, right? But it's walkable, it's shoppable, a higher threshold around retail designs and the purpose of those stores. They're not just transactional spaces, they're spaces to go to be inspired, to be educated, to spend time. And I think it's no accident that you're seeing, best in class retailers continuing to invest in it. And, even as a reference point, we're really interested in the work that Restoration Hardware has done, where it's the brand, it's the dream, it's the restaurant, it's everything that you want to be. And that just enhances their digital and catalog business.
Yeah, it's all about the experience and you being able. I love that you guys say it's the moment of discovery, because you don't know what's going to be in that next store when you walk right in. I'd love to again connect your history and your education through art history, and you talk about building design and experience, and inspiring people. From a CMO's perspective, how much is that infused within the design of how the retail experience is when you walk in? What your personal knowledge of art and the design of it all, and how you relate to the customers that walk in each individual city?
It's really critical, and here I have to really credit Mike Levitola, who's our CEO and co-founder. Mike has made so many really smart decisions about Foxtrot from the get-go, and one was to invest in store environments and to prioritize design as a proxy for the brand in a three-dimensional setting. That's carried forward to today. And if you go to any of our stores, whether it's Georgetown in the DC area, whether it's our soon-to-be open store in Austin, you'll see this real heavy emphasis on contextualizing that design to the environment where it's kind of welcoming in the neighborhood. And then the store layouts, we have a different approach to how we think about merchandising. Most retailers tend to think in terms of store prototype. We think in terms of category prototype. And what that does is it gives us a really very flexible format in terms of how we think about where we can appear. So later this month, we're opening, for those of you who might be from Chicago, you may very well know the Tribune Tower and the Willis Tower, and then soon to be followed by Wrigleyville, our Wrigleyville location. 3 iconic locations, each of them different from the standpoint of who are the passersby, who will a customer be. And we were able to fit our brand vision into those spaces uniquely because we have this kind of modular approach to design.
Love it. I love it. I got to ask, Chicago has its own flair versus you coming to New York. Which pizza is going to win out? Is it going to be New York or Chicago pizza?
Well, it's so funny. I can't reveal too much, but pizzas, I will just say pizza is a hot topic at Foxtrot right now. And you're right to say that there are regional preferences, and that's something that we dial up to, both in our cafe menu, to the extent that we have special cafe specialty drinks, no matter what region you're in. Like we just launched a cherry blossom latte for our DC stores in celebration of that wonderful spring event. But we do try to not only localize our cafe and prepared foods offering, but also the product that's on our shelves by highlighting favorite local brands and small makers too.
Love it. And supporting local along the way, which is great. Shifting gears a little bit, talk about convenience and talk about how convenience has shifted through the pandemic and what we're seeing as the future of convenience to consumers.
Yeah, I absolutely love this topic because I think obviously Foxtrot's been in the space. The company was founded in 2014, so we've been in the business of on-demand delivery for a number of years and really predated in so many ways the on-demand culture that has been fully normalized at this point. I think what we saw prior to the pandemic was that this behavior was really emerging, and for those that had tapped it and understood it, they were highly dedicated and committed to it. We saw that adoption just accelerate and drive penetration throughout the pandemic. So something that was a fringe behavior became a core behavior, and that really hasn't retracted. I think what we've also observed, though, is that the standards for what is convenient have been raised. So this idea of like, I just want anything, anytime, that's no longer sufficient, right? I think it's this idea of, as I like to say, putting culture back into convenience. It's somewhat ironic that really high value activity, which is last mile delivery, somehow got commoditized to the point where we all want to be able to have it at any time, costless. But on the other side of that, what's actually be delivered may not be something that feels really special. And that's where our focus on great products and editorializing and curating the right assortment for our customers makes that last mile delivery not only be convenient, but really fulfilling and desirable.
Love it. And you guys have brands anywhere from core pantry essentials, treats, wines, spirits, which You said delivered in the evening. Hopefully you can get delivered earlier in the day as
Oh,
well.
yes, you can get it delivered all day long. Yep.
Just want to make sure. And everything is available in your retail locations, but you also make that inventory available for either a 5-minute pickup option, if I'm not mistaken, and delivery under an hour. Tell us how that's even possible in this day and age, and then how we see that expanding into the future.
It's such a great question, because I think people can go into our stores and I don't blame them, because they're beautiful, and just say like, oh, this is great, I love this store. But the reality is our stores actually function as warehouses too. I spoke earlier about the investment that how we really are a technology company at our core. And that's not only true from an external customer user experience, but it's also true from the back of the house retail operational technology that powers our on-demand delivery. So our stores operate as fulfillment centers as well as receiving centers. And that is what enables us to give that superlative service where you can place an order and within 5 minutes, you're ready to get your cup of coffee or your bottle of wine.
Love it. And I got to ask you, what is your go-to convenience store item yourself?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm usually rushing on the way home, trying to get something pulled together for dinner. So I'm hyper dedicated to our pizzas and to our tortilla noodles. They're wonderful. Tortillas is a Chicago pasta, I would say Mecca here in Chicago. And we carry their line of pastas exclusively in our stores. So
that's great. Items. And then going back to your experience, you worked at Kate Spade, Amazon, Saks, Target, all these big retail companies, great companies. Tell us about a time that something that you've learned from a coworker, a boss, mentor that still sticks with you today.
I think it's just this notion of, never underestimate the impact that you as an individual can have on an organization. And, I think retail is such a wonderfully flexible and dynamic vertical to be working in, where you are able to connect with the customer directly. And as such, you're earning that customer rapport and trust every single day. And so there's an urgency inherent in this discipline or this field that I'm in. And that ability to feel that you can make an impact and that you should empower yourself to make that impact is something that has stayed with me and is something I rely on really heavily being in a startup environment now.
Yeah, and as CMO, obviously you need to find the biggest next creative. What is the next big swing for you guys to be at the forefront of the conversations? But I found a great quote that you had said in a blog post. It said, start with being curious and get your ego out of the way. Your ego is crippling and makes you myopic. If you're willing to say, I don't have the answers, the possibilities are endless. It is the starting point for creative solutions, which resonated a lot with me. But I'd love to know for you, tell us about a time where you just didn't have the answer.
Oh my gosh. Well, I could tell you, that just happened 10 minutes before getting on with you, and I think the reality is that if you have the good fortune to advance, you're going to be more and more in the space where you don't know. And really it's about the quality of the questions that you're asking and working together to answer. I think that I think where we are still learning and emerging is I think it's around prioritizing so many customer insights that we get in. What are the insights that we really want to focus in on? And being able to test and learn around the way. I think there used to be this tendency, I think, on behalf of marketers, in a campaign-based environment where all resources were all in on the big idea. And now I think the best marketers have really embraced a test and learn approach that has a lot of learnings, frankly, from the kind of tech sprints that you see on the other side of the house, where it's less about, hey, let's get it perfect, let's get it totally crystal clear, and more about iterative improvements before you make a full investment. And that's definitely an ethos that I've been focused on rolling out with my team.
Love it. And what is the future for Foxtrot? Is there a company that you see in the space that's doing things that you would love to be doing, or where do you see yourself again later down the line in the future?
Well, what attracted me to the company continues to be true, which is this idea that we really have an incredibly intimate relationship with our customers. So we're the first cup of coffee in the morning, we're that last great glass of wine in the evening. And there are very few businesses that can connect with a customer at multiple points during the day, and then multiple times during the week, and theoretically infinitely during the year. So that intimate relationship ultimately is a lifestyle relationship. And I think what's been really exciting for me are the ways in which, when we've tested lifestyle, we just launched a new apparel collection earlier this month, how quickly our customers connect with it, because we're really about ultimately a sensibility or a mindset in delivering that burst of excitement, that burst of discovery throughout that day-to-day life that we all know so well. And I always think when you've got a great story to tell and you're in a position of high trust with your customer, you really can go anywhere with that relationship.
Yeah. And how do you feel about experiential marketing? What is the future of experiential, getting people in the store and coming up with the next big campaign in order to do that? I know the pandemic has shifted experiential in a way, and I'd love to kind of hear your point of view on that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of the areas you're going to see a tremendous amount of investment in, particularly over the summer, and as we go into truly, fingers crossed, knock on wood, post-COVID life, because the reality is that it's really challenging to create that rich ecosystem of a brand story solely through digital channels. And in universes where many brands have pulled back on retail for the reasons that we talked about earlier, they are looking for those moments where they can really splash out and connect with a customer on many different dimensions. I think that being said, you're going to see a higher threshold and cost structure connected with that. So probably fewer experiential moments, higher quality experiential moments that are tied to events and moments where you're really targeting a specific customer demographic.
Love it. And you talked about local earlier and supporting local. Can you dig in on that a little bit more, and how you're going to be supporting local in these cities like New York, Austin? Obviously, I'm here in Manhattan. Like, what is it about Manhattan flair that we could do to support the local merchants, but while also making sure that people have the individual experience within a Foxtrot convenience store?
Yeah, absolutely. When we think about local, we really think about businesses that have a direct and immediate connection with customers in the region that we have stores, right? So local for us is not like, hey, anybody in the Midwest. It literally is in Chicago, Bang Bang Pies, which has a location on the north side. We sell their chicken pot pies in our stores. And because that's a distribution model that they themselves would not be able to do, it works out really, really great. So, and that's the type of relationship that we've sought to replicate in all the markets that we operate in, where we're looking for the local baker, the local pastry shop, who would never open 5 or 10 locations. It just isn't economically feasible for them to do that, but they've got the infrastructure to produce more goods. They just are in need of distribution. And what's really interesting for us is that our approach to local is really serving an important economic ladder for the brands that we work with, because in a universe where you've had so much consolidation, you no longer have that moment where you can take a product that maybe was incubated at a mom and pop basis and kind of roll it out door by door. You just don't have that ease and feasibility. And we play that role in the geographies that we operate in.
Love it. And it's funny because like everyone has those brands that they love, and they just they go to, like you worked at Target, for example. People have a specific love for Target than they do for other retail, big box stores. How do we redefine, and not redefine, but keep getting Foxtrot in that conversation of brand love? And I think we just got a question from Allison talking about love Foxtrot. I need one in my neighborhood. How can I get you to come to our area? And I know you guys have specific cities that you guys are eyeing, but because of this brand love and experience you guys are creating, how do you keep expanding and stay relevant at the same time?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I would say, I think we're working through what the answer is there, if I'm being honest, Eric. I think first and foremost, it's being hyper specific on the markets that we're going to appear in and not sacrificing on the quality. So for example, we're going to be opening in Austin later this year. We've been out touring that region, getting to know local providers for the better past 6 months, right? So a year in advance of being in the market, we're already researching who are the brands, who should we be connecting with, and laying down that groundwork. And we are continuing to invest in localizing our assortment and making sure that our merchandising team is set up to do just that. I think we're really fortunate in that because we've communicated this idea that we are deeply locally focused, local brands are often on the lookout for us. And so it's this mutual matchmaking period that happens and that will continue to fuel how we appear with new stores.
What is one local brand that you absolutely love to have at Foxtrot that is currently not in the store?
Oh my gosh, that's a really good question. I don't have a specific name to share with you, but I can tell you one thing that we're actively looking at is which barbecue sauce we're going to be bringing in Austin, and we haven't picked the final winner. And I don't want to create a firestorm with all my Texas friends, so I'm going to refrain from saying the name. But I will say that I've been tasting a lot of barbecue sauce right now.
I'll tell you what, we represent Top Chef. We have a lot of chef testants who would be willing to help you out there with barbecue sauce as well. But we'll talk later about that.
I would love that. We're huge fans of Top Chef, and in fact, we recently did a small makers award contest, and Kristen Kish, who I think won, forgive me the season, but she was on one of our judges. So and she also has a restaurant in Austin. So
absolutely,
definitely be talking.
It's funny you bring that up because that's what we hear day in, day out. But
yeah.
People hear that this chef Teston owns a restaurant in Austin, and it's a location to go to. And I feel like Foxtrot is becoming that go to. You see it in your local neighborhood, and you feel like you're home. No matter what city you're in. So that's great. Now I have to ask from an NBCU perspective. I need to legally. I think I have to ask this question, but your favorite NBC show growing up, as well as your current favorite show on NBCU. It could be any network from Bravo, E, anything across the board. I would love to ask you your opinion there.
Well, Seinfeld, of course. I mean, and I admit to indoctrinating my son into that. He's learning that sly sense of humor. And then I am a devotee of Top Chef. In fact, it's so funny. I've been watching this season, and I've been bugging our CEO about like Houston locations, because I'm just you just sort of see the dimension of how rich that culinary culture is there, and I'm like, we should expand in Houston. So
absolutely, I'll connect you to some folks here. We can make that happen.
Yeah.
Absolutely great. So I know there's some questions being asked, and Mike, you let me know if there's ones flooding in, or if you want me to toss it to you. But I think this has been an absolutely amazing conversation so far, Carla. So thank you for the time.
Yeah, happy.
Mike, you tell us, is there any questions that you're seeing on your end? Oh, Mike, I think is on mute. There he is.
I'm on mute there. Sorry, my video was being held for a little bit. Yeah. So is there do you have any other questions there, Eric, or is it
I can ask questions all day. I thought there were some questions, and I'm happy to keep going if there's no questions popping up at the top of your feed.
Sure, I'm sure. I mean, there are ones in the chat. I don't know if you've seen those. Is that what you're?
Yeah, there we go. I see one here. Foxtrot on TikTok. How do we go towards social media platforms, and what specifically with TikTok?
Yeah, so we launched on TikTok about a year ago, and we've been having a lot of fun experimenting with it. I think I would say in the last 4 months, we've really been finding our vibe, which is around connecting around the culture of what it means to shop at Foxtrot. And so what do I mean about that? Like, anybody who's a real devotee knows that, obsession with your first cup of coffee on Monday morning, or like when we first announced the coffee specials that with each new menu change. And so we really vibe into that culture within our own ecosystem. And then similarly, pay a lot of attention to sounds and tracks and music that's tracking on the platform to kind of riff off of that natural momentum on the platform. I think what's so interesting to us about that, as a foil to, I think, other social platforms, is that it really isn't community based, it's entertainment based. And so riding that wave of interest where you're really not trying to tell a story within your own domain, you're trying to connect your brand story to what's happening in culture. And that's just been a really exciting place for us to play in. Additionally, we've had a lot of fun gifting TikTokers who we love Foxtrot merch and seeing them wear that merch and content that they're creating that may or may not be connected to Foxtrot. It's just this notion of like, we're part of that sphere, we're part of that media experience, and we just appear in places where we know our customers are concerned and consuming it.
Yeah. And it's so funny because from a media company's perspective, we have all these different platforms that we see as almost like toys in our toy chest that we can use. And like you said, it needs to be immersed in culture. It needs to be immersed in relevant content that consumers are really interacting with. And so for us, like using a Top Chef, for example, like viewers from our perspective want to hear what they have to say. They want to hear the recipes. They want to hear get the tips. Like, are you looking to partner with influencers? Are you looking to partner? Like, what is the next stage of people getting to interact with their favorite content?
So great. Yeah, you know, I think we've used influencers in various capacities. We've used them to extend the amplification of the different chapters in our story, and we've used that highly effectively. We've also used influencers or asked them to co-collaborate on content to amp up the volume of stories that we're telling. I think the next foray will really be about, because we're at a different level of brand maturity than we were, you know, even a year ago, and we've got a different level of familiarity and understanding around who we are. So our next focus will really be on connecting with influencers whose own story and own approach to content complements our own. So much more of a parity relationship and less about simply amplification or just creating.
Yeah, I'm sure every city that you go to, the influencer is going to have a total different spin. And so I think it's so interesting that you can go to each city and tell that brand story and create an immersive experience as you're walking in and experiencing Austin, and like you said, in four walls. And then continuing that brand story through social media platforms, digital platforms, and through e-commerce. And it's just very interesting tactic to kind of revolutionize the retail space. But you guys keep growing, which is incredible. So is the goal to, let's say, in Manhattan, get more stores in Manhattan, or would you rather be select with the amount of stores in a city like Manhattan or Austin? Or what is the approach to the amount of retail stores to make it almost like this esoteric place where when you see it, like you have to walk in, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I would say that we're still learning what the ultimate density will be in different geographies. And I think that's that's really highly dependent upon what is a convenient radius for our customers, right? Like in Chicago, we know it's about half a mile. Having lived in New York for a number of years, I know that distance would be much shorter because of course you have such higher density. I think we're still figuring that out. What I would say is that our plan when we launch into new markets is not just to do one store, but rather do a cluster in a very explosive moment. So we're quickly getting a higher level of awareness and sensibility around our intent to really offer that morning to night full experience, whether it's in store or on demand delivery.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because, like, obviously it's hard to not compare you guys to the opposite side of the spectrum, which would be 7-Eleven, and that is the fundamental convenience store. But you guys are the high-end luxury convenience store, which still offers the same amount of convenience, but you don't leave with that taste of 7-Eleven coming out. You leave with that feeling that you got exactly what you needed to get and got a great experience along the way. And I applaud you guys for all. I think a lot of it is the brand storytelling and then how you're able to market it, but it goes back to the quality as well. So you guys really pride yourselves on the quality of brands that are in your establishment. So excited to see what's next.
Thank you.
So Mike, unless there's any other questions, I'm going to give Carla a quick quiz to end this. This is not going to be a tough quiz, hopefully, because you do have a master's in art history. So I researched the easiest art history questions that we can kind of end on a high note here. So I got to ask, in which city and country is the Louvre Art Museum located?
Paris, France.
There we go. Who painted the Mona Lisa?
Leonardo da Vinci.
I told you you were going to do well in this.
Yeah.
Salvador Dali is associated with which art movement?
The Surrealists.
There we go. Which period has a French name that translates to rebirth in English?
Rebirth. Are you thinking the Renaissance?
That is correct. And I learned that you are also bilingual, English and French. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Very nice. I knew that was going to be an easy one for you. Who painted The Girl Before a Mirror and The Weeping Woman?
Oh my goodness. I know he was Dutch. I don't know.
Pablo Picasso.
Oh, Pablo Picasso, forgive me. Thank you.
All right, one more, and then I promise you we'll be done. Which abstract expressionist was known for using the drip technique?
Oh, de Kooning.
That is Jackson Pollock.
Oh, Jackson Pollock. He's done it twice.
I can't leave you. We got to get one right before we go.
I got to.
Which French art movement of the late 19th century is characterized by evoking emotion rather than realism?
Impressionism.
That is right. There, now we can end this.
I know. I was the 19th century was my period. I will say.
That is perfect. Carla, seriously, on behalf of everyone on this call and everyone on here, thank you so much for the time and opportunity to talk through this. And we're excited to see the future of Foxtrot and everything that you guys bring to the table.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It was great.
Absolutely. And back to you, Mike.